Hi, everybody. I see people are coming in. I'm going to wait a couple of minutes until more people have joined us, and then I will be starting. Okay, so there are people still coming in, but I think I'm going to get started. My name is Anjali Maazel. I'm a former Princeton University interviewer, TED Talk speaker, and college admissions expert. I'm also the very proud mom of a thriving 24-year-old now in grad school. At Anja Education Consultants, we have helped hundreds of kids get into their top perfect match schools, including Yale and Stanford, Johns Hopkins and Vanderbilt, Swarthmore, and UT Austin, to name a few. Many of you here today are here because you can clearly see that applying to college has become much more challenging. And many of you are probably feeling a combination of excitement and anxiety. So let me first begin by just acknowledging that I truly understand these feelings. And by the end of this talk today, after I outline the specific challenges and solutions, I think you're going to feel much more clear and in control of the process, confident and aligned with what you truly want. So I'd like to tell you a story to start with. I grew up in New York City and went to an extremely competitive high school. Just to give you an idea, we would finish school around 5 p.m., have about 5 or 6 hours of homework a night, and really, I felt oppressed by it. I did really well despite that, but I couldn't wait to get out of there and go to college. My senior year in high school was truly bizarre. Get this, my classmates and their parents got together and offered me cash to withdraw my applications after I was admitted early action to Yale. Apart from the really unsettling feeling that gave me, I hadn't decided if I really wanted to attend that school. I wanted to see which other options would open up for me in the spring, and as it turned out, I ended up going not to Yale, but to Princeton. So in all, that experience really left me feeling ill at ease. So when planning my own son's education, I was determined that he was not going to suffer the crushing kind of toxic atmosphere and a learning environment that I'd endured, which in the end, I really didn't feel served me in the long run. So I wanted my son to be happy, but of course I also wanted him to be successful. So how to strike the right balance? The difficulty started in choosing a high school for him. We went back and forth between competitive, well-known prep schools and a small, unknown school that prioritized love of learning and independent projects. I realized that either way there would be trade-offs, but in the end I chose a small school where my son found his passion. And given that I had been an interviewer for many years for Princeton, as well as a teacher who wrote letters of recommendation and gave college essay guidance, you'd think it would have been easy for me to guide my son through the college applications, right? Not true. So I hired a colleague to work with him, and after many months, at the end of a surprisingly difficult process, he got into an Ivy League school. But that is not what he chose. He made what some of you might think was a very unexpected choice, and I'll tell you about it at the end of the webinar. So what I want you to know is that I have been where you are. I knew the system well, but when my son applied to college, I had really complicated feelings. Like many parents, I was vulnerable to confusion, frustration, and fear. But I did learn something really important. I discovered that my son, like all of you here today, was facing a threefold problem when applying to college. Number one, increased competition. Number two, complexity of the application process. And number three, the rising cost of college. Now, what does this challenge look like in practice? So first, let's consider the competitiveness of the college admissions process. If you were a Texas student in the 90s and graduated in the top 20% of your graduating class, you were automatically admitted to UT Austin. Today, you'll need to graduate in the top 6% of the class. If you were applying to Yale in the 90s, you had an 18% chance of admission. Now it's under 5%. And 70% of USC applicants were admitted in the 90s, but in 2022, it was under 12%. So maybe some of you read the recent Wall Street Journal about a young woman with an SAT score of 1550, a GPA of 3.95, phenomenal extracurricular experiences and leadership position. She applied to top-tier schools and shockingly was not admitted to any of them. So there's no doubt that college admissions today is super competitive. Now let's look at the second of the threefold problem, the complexity. So 20 years ago, you might have applied, like me, to one or two or three colleges. The process was clear, simple, and straightforward. Now, because of all the moving parts, and students are applying to many more colleges, as many as 8 to 15 for my students. So there's a lot to stay on top of. Recently, a friend of mine was telling me about the ordeal of helping his son apply to college last fall. The numbers of different essays for each college, the completely different online applications to fill in, SAT prep, coordinating with his school to send letters of recommendation, essays, recommendations for honors programs, coordinating summer internships, and updating transcripts multiple times. All of this was a ton of work and created months of tension with his son. So clearly, this complexity needs to be simplified. So now, after the competitiveness and the complexity of the college admissions, let's look at how incredibly expensive college has gotten. So if you'll look at this graph and brace yourself, it really illustrates how the cost of college tuition has exploded. The red line here on the bottom is the rate of inflation, and as you can see, the black line on the top is the rate of the increase in college tuition. Clearly, college tuition has massively outpaced inflation for decades. Private colleges can cost up to $77,000 per year, while in-state tuition for public schools can be up to $28,000 per year. But here's the good news. Merit scholarships can be worth tens of thousands and even hundreds of thousands of dollars. In fact, in 2022 alone, our clients averaged over $182,000 total in merit scholarships per student. And that was one of my goals from the onset. We know how expensive college has become, so by making our clients more attractive to colleges, we can radically increase the amount of merit scholarships. So how do we do this? Here are 3 quick success stories which illustrate how we guide students to gain a competitive edge, simplify the complexity, and maximize scholarships to reduce the cost of college. Let's start with Tony. When we began working together early in 10th grade, Tony had high A's and an SAT score in the 1500s. He was stellar in math, so his teachers and family were naturally pushing him toward engineering. But after talking to Tony, he made it very clear that engineering was not what he wanted. However, and this was the game changer, through our process, we discovered that he had a significant talent and passion in art as well as STEM. So we matched him to a local art mentor and a summer program to develop a portfolio, the very portfolio he could then use with his applications. Exploring his interest in visual arts and combining this with his talent in math led Tony to discover a passion for architecture. And this discovery made all the difference because it made Tony really stand out. Why? Because Tony had a story to tell, and nothing will make you stand out from the crowd more than having your own story that demonstrates genuine passion and growth. So we found Tony's passion. We simplified the application process by guiding him to a clear major and career path he loved, architecture. We slashed costs by securing a $100,000 scholarship to Tulane, and we gave him a competitive edge by curating his art portfolio and targeting his essays to align with architecture and his new vision for himself. The result was that Tony was admitted to his Rice, his first choice, where he now has finished a successful freshman year. And in this way, we solved the threefold problem of college admissions for Tony. But not all of us are straight A students like Tony. Many of us get A's and B's. We might have a down year, we might get sick or be in a competitive high school, but we're still ambitious. This was Ellen. Ellen had a B average from a competitive high school, but was confident about thriving in a selective college. By working with her, we discovered that her GPA had significantly increased over the 3 years of high school, from 9th to 11th grade, through her hard work. When she got B's, it motivated her to get tutoring and find a college professor as a mentor, and she kept signing up for challenging classes. She also rose to a leadership position in yearbook and got a summer internship at a startup incubator to explore a major in business. But how was she going to pull all these threads together to showcase her accomplishments? We worked with Ellen to tell her story in a compelling way. We helped her tell her story as a journey of growth and responsibility. We demonstrated through her essays and applications how she learned from setbacks and how these setbacks led her to development and improvement. In fact, they became assets. Maybe you or your child is like Ellen. You discovered a specific passion halfway through high school, or maybe you began to excel by end of junior year, or maybe you're a straight A student who had a clear major in mind from the start. Either way, you may not recognize what's exceptional about you, but everybody has a powerful story to tell. We want to help you tell your story in a memorable way, your passions, your challenges, and your successes. So to summarize for Ellen, we simplified the application process by keeping her accountable and breaking down the long list of tasks into small steps. We kept costs down by helping Ellen submit standout application, and she eventually received 12 scholarship offers ranging from $20,000 to $100,000. We gave Ellen a competitive edge by helping her pull all her academic and extracurricular experiences together into a compelling story in the essays and her interviews. So despite her GPA, she was admitted as a business major to Emory University, her first choice. So for Ellen, we solved the threefold problem of college admissions. Next, I'm going to let Maria and her daughter Grace, who I worked with last year, tell you how the process went for them.
Hi everyone, I'm Grace Sorensen and I'm a long-term client of Miss Anjali. We began working my freshman year. Right away she got to know my family, my passions, and what I saw myself doing beyond just the years of college.
I have to agree. I'm Maria and I'm Grace's mom. And I would have to say the best thing about Anjali and working with her is that she's super organized. She uses a lot of technological tools that keep us organized with calendars and scheduling. What I loved is that she made Grace responsible for all of it. So selfishly, I didn't have to do all of that. And I actually love that she made her become very independent and very responsible for her learning and for her goals and reaching them. We love her dearly, and
Absolutely.
We are very grateful for her because she goes far beyond just academic learning and growth.
And I'm so proud to say and so thankful to be able to say that in these 4 years, thanks to her help with my applications, I was able to get a $20,000 scholarship to my top pick school, which is California Institute of the Arts, also known as CalArts. So thank you, Miss Anjali, for everything that you've done for me. We love you so much, and we can't wait to see what other lives you get to change. Thank you.
So Grace was came into the process with an AB GPA. When she says she was able to obtain a $20,000 scholarship, that's per year. So her actual total scholarship that she received was $80,000. And she had no test scores, but she had a remarkable singing voice and talent that she needed to showcase. So what was our solution to the threefold problem of admissions for Grace? First, we simplified the process by keeping her organized and on task through spreadsheets and application tracking system. Second, we kept costs down by optimizing all aspects of her applications and tailoring her college list, and she was awarded scholarships ranging from $80,000 to $199,000. And third, as Grace was a singer, we gave her a competitive edge by curating her vocal submissions and helping her get admitted to the super selective Grammy summer camp. In the end, she was accepted to her first choice college, the very prestigious California Institute of the Arts. So let's look at what the three students we discussed, Tony, Ellen, and Grace, they were all success stories, right? But they were very different one from the other. Yet for all of our students, we were able to address the competitiveness, the complexity, and the cost of college. How do we do that? Well, we use the personalized blueprint for success that I have developed as a former Princeton interviewer, teacher, and parent. It is the blueprint I have used to guide hundreds of students through the admission process. So again, quickly to summarize, for the three students, Tony, now an architecture major at his first choice Rice University, needed guidance on major and career. So we focused on giving him a competitive edge through finding him a mentor to take his art to the next level, curating his portfolio, and connecting his art to his major in the essays. Ellen, now a business major at her first choice Emory University, needed help to tell her story of academic growth and extracurricular accomplishment. We simplified the process for her by focusing on academic tutoring and an SAT, ACT prep strategy, and helped her write memorable essays. Grace, admitted to her first choice California Institute of the Arts, needed advice about how to take her singing to the next level. So we matched her to the prestigious Grammy camp and curated her music reel. This maximized scholarships and kept costs down. Now, before I share how I can help you solve the threefold problem of college admissions and tell your story, check out my track record and the return on investment when you work with me. So in 2022 alone, our students received more than $2 million of scholarships, and that averages per student as a total of $182,000 in scholarships. So the return on investment for our families was very high, and our fees were paid for many times over. In this same application cycle, the students I worked with were admitted to some of the most selective colleges in the country, including Stanford, Dartmouth, University of Pennsylvania, Johns Hopkins, as well as excellent schools such as UC Riverside, Penn State, Ohio State, and Texas A&M. Best of all, these were also the right fit for each applicant. We made sure of it. So, if you want to gain a competitive edge, simplify the application process and keep costs down, like the hundreds of students I have helped ace college admissions, here are the 3 options. So for students in 7th to 10th grades, we have college planning packages. And in this sense, we have time to identify your kids' talents, discover their passions, make sure they are really on track. This option also maximizes admissions and scholarships results when they apply to college. We will help optimize their GPA, test scores, extracurriculars, and summer planning. You will also get a one-on-one financial advisor to help you maximize aid potential and create a money-saving funding plan through our partner, SmartTrack. Packages for this group of students start at $1,997. Option 2 is for the 11th to 12th grade students. Our comprehensive college application package, which is our most popular one for this age group, will give you a competitive edge. We will help optimize essays, SAT prep and testing, applications, and summer planning, as well as demonstrated interest score for each college. These packages are around $12,000, with the ability to provide some level of customization depending on your situation. Now, there's a third option for 9th to 10th grade students, and this is for the very ambitious. It will really help you stand out in the application process through a multi-year, high-impact personal research or community impact project designed, implemented, and scaled with the help of an expert mentor. One student built music software for universities that is now used. Another created publications for hospitals to help kids after surgery. A third produced concerts raising tens of thousands of dollars for first responders. The goal here is to get an outstanding admissions and scholarship advantage by optimizing your resume with a high-impact project to highlight your sense of purpose, identity, and interests. Please sign up for the strategy session that you'll get the link shortly to get custom quotes and more details. Okay, so additionally for this seminar today in connection with NSHSS, we are offering a $200 discount on all our packages if you sign up for a free 20-minute strategy session. So students, please bring both parents. Parents, please bring your spouse. Leslie, our wonderful moderator, will now drop that link in the chat. So please check it out. Now, I've given you the facts, right? I've given you the hard facts and the challenges of college admissions. And now I really want to finish the story about my son who applied to college a few years ago. At the end of the process, as I mentioned, he did in fact get into an Ivy League school. But that is not what he chose. Instead, after a lot of research, investigation, deep reflection, and a visit to the campuses, my son chose an amazing school, Carleton College in Minnesota, which you may not have heard of, but turns out employers, grad schools, and prestigious fellowship boards know very well. It was by far a better choice for him than the Ivy, At Carleton, my son got more attention. Classes were more targeted. His professors advocated for him. He stood out. And after his freshman year in college, he was awarded the Orion Mission Internship at NASA and a second Orion Mission Internship at NASA the following summer. Today, he's in graduate school at an Ivy League college and tells me that in retrospect, this was absolutely the right choice, although some disagreed with him. Best of all for me, as a mom, he's happy and thriving. So parents, you may be anxious right now, but I can assure you that there are many roads to success. Please remember that college is not a destination. The college application process can help your student begin to discover a sense of purpose, a great first step in designing a life of meaning and financial stability. And that is what I wish for every single one of you. So now let's see what questions you are asking. I am going to share my screen again, and I'm going to now look in the chat. I am in the Q&A. Very good. So well, just to kind of answer a question that's very, very common. Please feel free, by the way, no matter where you are in the process, no matter what kind of colleges you're thinking about, whether you're, whatever your challenges are, feel free to ask me questions. This is a great opportunity, and I'm really here to be helpful to you. So absolutely feel free. So Amber is asking, is there any package or anything helpful for kids who want help but cannot pay for the packages? We have a range of services. So you don't let finances get in the way. And so please feel free to connect with me. Absolutely. And other question now, how do you decide between majors if you love many different hobbies? Yes, that is a great question. So I call it the sweet spot between passion and talent, right? There often is an intersection between those two things. And if you have a lot of different areas in your life that you are passionate about, you may be a Renaissance kid, a young person that is more of a generalist than a specialist. And there are many fascinating career paths and majors for students like that, including interdisciplinary majors, including double majors or majors and minors, including create your own majors. A lot of colleges are doing that. And so, that's a good question. Now, I help students get started in that process by absolutely looking at an assessment. So I give students an assessment, I ask them questions, but I also give them an assessment, which is an interest and strengths assessment, to be able to start envisioning how could all these interests be combined, or how could, a number of these interests be combined. So never think that you have to necessarily only focus on one path. Other question, and Leslie, would you please again be kind and put the link and the instructions into the chat? Thank you. So yes, the Zoom is recorded and will be posted on the website, so you can see it again, absolutely. Now, how exactly do you find kids' passions? That's a great question. So I use a process called talent development. I call it the 3 Ds of talent development, helping students discover, develop, and demonstrate their talents. And I use a variety of different methods. Interest and strengths assessment, I interview the students, and I also, once I get to know the student, provide them with opportunities to test out some of these interests in the real world. There are ways to do it, even for high school students, through kind of mini internships, shadowing, and then as they get further on in high school, research internships. The mentorship that I mentioned is an incredible way to help students identify these things. So there are many different ways, and I use pretty much all of them to help students discover. Now, students develop at their own rate, right? So a student may not know by the time they finish high school exactly, but at least they go into college with a plan. And if they go into a college with a plan, even let's say they change their major or they discover during an internship between freshman and sophomore year in college, or that they love something else much more and they're very good at it, that's okay, because they're going to change their plan, and then what they're going to do is but at least they will have gone in with a trajectory which will save time in the end. So let's see, how do you recommend exploring different fields of interest? Should you look for local companies? Yeah, so there are many different ways, okay? There's volunteering, there's interning, there's personal projects. I'm a big fan of a combination of those. But the thing is, because students have a limited time between school and maybe family responsibilities and other things, the important thing is to choose wisely. Okay, so, not to get kind of some generic advice. That's why I work one-on-one with students, to really get to know them and recommend, what suits this young person, and how are we going to allow them not to waste time, to make the most of the limited amount of time that they have between whatever, 6th and 12th, or between 9th and 12th grades. So I would say it's not just local companies. There are a lot of options out there. The thing is to tailor it to your child. And then if your school does not offer a lot of opportunities of extracurricular, how do you do you have recommended sites we can use to find more opportunities? There are a number of sites. You can definitely look on them, but the thing is, it's about choosing and fitting these opportunities to the student. It's not about checking off boxes, right? It's about aligning the extracurricular choices, and even the courses with the students, with that, as much as possible, with that sweet spot between talent and passion. So, because that in the end is what is going to make for outstanding college applications. When I say ace the admissions process, that's kind of what I'm talking about. Now, a good site for volunteering, for example, is volunteermatch.org. There are a lot of volunteering opportunities. There are local nonprofits, there are companies. It's a question of matching the student with opportunities that are going to help them, number one, find out more about their intended major and career, develop their talents, demonstrate to colleges. So the 3 Ds of talent development, that they, have been thoughtful about this and taken action that aligns with who they are. Other question, I'm an A student, but I don't do any extracurricular activities. Will it affect my college admission process? So, it truly depends on what kinds of schools. Luckily in this country, there are, over 4,000 four-year colleges and universities. If you're applying to the most selective colleges in the country, if you look on U.S. News, I would say the top 50 or 60 or maybe even more, the applicant pool is going to be full of students who have extracurriculars. But there are students who don't have extracurriculars for very clear reasons. For example, if you have family responsibilities. And, I had a student recently admitted to NYU who basically had no extracurriculars because he spent his free time cooking and cleaning because his mom was single mom, and he took care of his younger sister. And and that's what he wrote his essay about. So it doesn't have to look like everybody else. But what you want to demonstrate is that sometimes the students won't have extracurriculars because they've been sick. Or, a lot of students have had mental illness as a result of COVID because of the isolation. There are places in the application to talk about that. So never, ever feel that you don't have options. You always have options. There are options. We just have to find what the right strategy is for you. But of course, your question about extracurriculars, if you're in 9th grade and you don't have extracurriculars, well, and you have the time and the wherewithal, then maybe you're going to start trying that out. Of course, if you're at the end of 11th grade, you don't have that much time. But there are always possibilities. Don't think of all or nothing. Think of what you can do and do that. Okay, what would you recommend for students in their junior year looking at colleges? So I'm not sure exactly what the question is, but I think what you're asking is about timeline, like what should I be doing in junior year? Now, for rising juniors, if your question, your anonymous question here is because you're going to do 11th grade starting in August or September, then, what I do with my students is we do the interest and strengths assessment. I help them work on their resume. We work on, once I get to know them, then we look at what their college preferences are. We look at fit for college, and then create a college list, a best fit college list, generally before the winter break of junior year, so that winter break can be spent researching the colleges, and in January you have a short list that you can then start working on your essays. What you don't want to do is kind of put it all off. Now, I know some students in junior year are really overburdened, and so it's very hard to do these things at the same time. Don't worry. You have to work with where you are and what you can do. So if you have to start the application or the research process even kind of later in junior year, it's okay. Now, if there's some of you who are rising seniors and you're like, did I miss the boat? No, there is always time and there is always a way. It's just when I say, try to do these things junior year, it's just that then you spread it out over a longer time and it's not so, condensed and packed in. But, remember, there are many paths to success and many, many options, many more than we are, led to believe and often than we think. You always hear about full ride scholarships. Okay, what that means, right? So my son was offered a full ride scholarship to University of Rochester. He got very good financial aid from Carleton, so it ended up not being necessary. But basically, in that process, and often colleges will have a very limited number of full ride scholarships. Very often they will be on the website, and they involve an application process. So you're not just going to be doing the regular application. In the case of University of Rochester, the way it was a few years ago for this process, they actually flew him in and interviewed him. Professors interviewed him, students interviewed him, admissions interviewed him. I believe he even spent overnight. They did some social things together. So, generally that's how it works. Now, there are also colleges that, like Berea College, Berea, Berea, they admit students, and basically the students, in exchange for working on campus a certain number of hours per week, They pay no tuition. There are colleges like that. So, there are a lot of possibilities out there. It's a question of doing careful, methodical research. Ideally, is working with someone like me who can guide you to, save you time and find you the best fit college list. I don't know what I want to do, and my extracurriculars don't have a theme. Does that put me at a disadvantage? Okay, no problem. Okay, no problem. You don't know yet what you have to do. There is actually a major in most colleges called undecided. Now, when you apply undecided, and again, I don't know, I don't know whether you're a rising senior. If you're a rising senior, then what you want to do is try to find some theme. Now, if you're younger, you have plenty of time to develop some of those interests. But if you're a rising senior, then you're going to, even if you're applying undecided, you're going to want to somehow bring some of the threads together. It doesn't have to be, ideal. I mean, and there's certainly, if it's not super selective colleges, if it's kind of mid-tier colleges, it's going to be fine, even if you don't have a major and you can't pull all your interests together. So what I'm trying to say is there is always a solution. Do not ever feel, it's just a question of looking in the right direction to find what your own personal solution is. Okay, so Anjali Rivas, do you know what is the best area or website for applying to Scuffer scholarships? Okay, so scholarships, interesting topic. Most colleges you are going to apply to consider you for merit scholarships automatically. In addition, colleges have additional scholarship essays that you can apply to. My recommendation is you start with the college scholarships rather than starting to look for the third-party scholarships like niche.com and all of that. There's nothing wrong with them, but the big ticket, those big scholarships are going to be awarded directly by the university. That's why my focus is helping students be extremely attractive applicants, is helping them put their best foot forward because we want to maximize those chances of scholarships. Now, once you've done all of that, check with the schools, find out if they will deduct third-party scholarships from the college awarded scholarships. If they do, it might not be worth your time, because if they award you $20,000, but you get $15,000 from outside scholarships, and they say, oh great, you got $15,000 from outside scholarships, so now we're only going to give you $5,000. It was a total waste of time. Now, not all colleges do that. Some will allow you to add. So that's something you have to look at school by school. Now, of course, there are many sites out there for third-party scholarships. There's FastWeb. There's, there's a long list. More or less, I've found that they're equivalent, but concentrate on the college-specific scholarships and your applications, optimizing your applications, which is what I do with my students. Okay, how do you recommend a student streamline their application if they have a wide range of extracurricular and hobbies rather than a specific focus? Yeah, so we kind of touched on this before, but it is an interesting question. One of the ways I help my students do that is through the mentored personal project, which can bring in disparate things. Let me explain. The student who created the jazz software for universities that's now being used, he ended up being able to go around and give talks to different colleges about it. He brought together his music, his computer science, his other qualities that he had, attention to detail, the fact he liked jazz. I mean, he brought a bunch of different interests together. So this is a very powerful way of doing it, but it has to be a project that's mentored, because most high school students, even adults, are not able to do a long-term project on their own. And the other thing it has to have impact, which is why, the students that work with my mentors, they can produce over a year and a half really something significant. Another way, again, is to look for the threads, look for that story. There is always a story to tell, right? Even a generalist who's tried 10 different things, that may be an asset. So it's the issue of finding that thread and finding how to present these adventures into different areas in a way that makes sense and that conveys, possibly the adventurousness of the student, right, who's tried different things. So there are all sorts of different ways to present what has been done in a compelling way. Are there any extracurricular activities that colleges like to see on applications, like National Honor Society or groups like that? Well, National Honor Society is great. You have to have a certain GPA and you have to be recommended by a teacher, so you have to have a certain character. So it does speak to that, and that's great. However, think about it. Think about how many high schools there are in the U.S., right? Think about how many kids are in NHS. Is it going to differentiate a student? It's not. Okay, it's still worth doing, and because also within NHS, a student could pursue different volunteer activities that might then be the basis, for example, of a personal project, or the basis of, it doesn't even have to be a personal project, it can be, working with a nonprofit and then doing something a little bigger with a little bit more scale and impact. So yes, it's great. And on its own, it's not going to differentiate, if that makes sense. Okay. I live in a rural area. I've always dreamed of going to an Ivy League. I'm attending Harvard's pre-college program. How important is it to have passion projects in the application process for these schools versus school extracurriculars, especially when your area is a sort of dead zone for volunteer and involvement opportunities? The students that, passion project is a kind of, I understand what you're saying. It's the kind of a little bit of a catch-all term. It's a little bit vague, so students that I work with, that I have seen be admitted to these schools, generally they have an area that or two areas, or maybe sometimes even three, that they pull together, either in a research project or research internship. So there are research internships offered by different universities and different organizations to allow students to have that kind of high-level experience. Some of them are very prestigious. That can be an option. Another option can be something that you do on your own. But, I don't want to make it seem that a student has to do these things, because, as I say, NYU now is a very, very competitive school to get into. It's got, admission rates in the teens. So, and this student of mine who was admitted had no extracurriculars because he had family responsibilities. So don't overlook the fact that sometimes teenagers, it's very hard for them to understand that some of the things they're doing have value and demonstrate character. So have a trusted adult look at your resume, and because if you're taking care of your sibling, or if you're taking care of an elderly grandparent, or if you live on a farm and you're taking care of animals, and there's a lot to be said about that, and that can demonstrate character too. So don't focus narrowly. When I gave my presentation, I gave suggestions based on the experience of my students, but I'm also adding this for you, okay? When do you think is the best time for a junior senior to start applying for scholarships? Again, Anjali Rivas, the scholarships are part of the application process. They are most colleges will consider you for scholarships as part of that process. Some colleges have deadlines, like generally October, November, December, for scholarship applications that are not part of the general process. So I would say start, if you're a rising senior, start looking now, because start getting your applications ready. So Common App opens August 1st. Start getting things ready, essays, et cetera, so that you're not absolutely slammed senior year or trying to do everything at once. Look at what the application deadlines are for the scholarships. And then once you've gotten kind of that in process, then you can look at third-party scholarships, but only if the colleges are not going to deduct the scholarship. And those third-party, you can do all of senior year. Now, some of them are, available junior year. It just depends where you're at. Very hard to give advice. I generally don't give generic advice. I'll give, personalized advice. Is it required to bring a parent to the 20-minute seminar, to this 20-minute strategy session? Absolutely, Amber. It needs to be both your parents. So, because this is an opportunity for you to discuss which of my packages would be the most useful for you. And so, all the decision makers need to be there. And, and then we can, you could ask your targeted questions, and I can show you how I would be able to help and address those things that are specific to you. Okay. Does having connections with people at colleges help with the application process? Interesting question. So, this is an interesting question. The college admission system is not transparent, right? I'm not going to say that if you have connections with the board of trustees, there could be some effect. I don't like to pronounce myself on this because, each college has their own policy, but overall, it can possibly be helpful, but you certainly don't need it to optimize your chances of admission to a school. That is through how you present yourself in the applications, how you interview, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, my extracurriculars aren't really related to my intended major. Will that be a disadvantage? Again, like I said earlier, you want to create a thread in the application, in the essays. You're adventurous, you've tried different things. Turn it into an asset, wherever possible. Now, again, if you're a rising senior, I would say that. If you're a ninth grader, a 10th grader, then I'd say let's see if you're really on target with your extracurriculars. But like, for example, I have had students apply for different majors and submit an art portfolio that is completely unrelated to the major, but it shows another side of them. So it can actually be an asset. It all depends on how you present it, basically. Are there any summer programs you would recommend for students interested in a science major? Okay, there are many summer programs, including the research program that I mentioned that we include in some of our packages. I'm very selective of who I work with, my partners. So, we have absolutely top of the line research mentors from top universities in the country. And yes, there are many. Again, I cannot just give you a list. You can find anything online. You can find lists of things, But really, I have to know, because not all of these programs are created equal. In order to recommend a summer program, which is, by the way, part of the work that I do with students, I want to see, their personality. I want to see where they're going to thrive. I want to see what their goals are. I want to see, I go through a very in-depth process to then even recommend a program. So, it's not that I don't want to answer you, is that I wouldn't really be doing justice to the question if I did. What do you think the top 3 most important aspects that colleges look for? Well, they're going to look at the rigor of the student's curriculum. Absolutely. That's going to be at the top of the list. Has the student challenged themselves within the context of what they're capable of, and within the context of, their family circumstances? Because not all students are able, to take zillion AP classes. They're just not. Nobody is, but let's say even like a normal amount of AP classes, whatever that number is, some students have, again, other responsibilities. So it's always in the context, but rigor of the curriculum in the context of the student's life and in the context of what is offered at the high school of that student. Number 2 is going to be, depth of involvement in extracurriculars. And then 3 is going to be character, and character is going to be seen through a lot of different lenses: letters of recommendation, essays, interviews, and anything that is not like just the numbers, the scores. I've left out SAT, ACT scores. There are tons of students with perfect ACT and SAT scores that don't get admitted to some of the top universities. So I just, do the best you can with that. But, I don't see it as a make or break. It's a nice little addition for sure, right? But so many colleges are still test optional. If a student is at the top of the 50th percentile for that college in the SAT or ACT, they should submit it. But anyway, those are the 3. It is the end of my junior year. I'm a very, very well-rounded student. How can I stand out to colleges in a short amount of time before applying? Yeah, I'm a little not sure what your question is. Are you asking whether you want to know what to do this summer? Is that what you mean by how can I stand out to colleges, the end of your junior year? How can I stand out to colleges? Think about your summer carefully. The time that students have in high school is really your most precious asset. Think very wisely about how you're going to use that time. Now, if you've already decided what you're going to do with your summer, then I would say focus on doing a stellar job on your applications. Start early, let the essays rest. Don't cram stuff at the last minute. That's going to put you in a very good position. I'm going to the 11th grade. During my 10th grade year, I had a down year. Am I still able to recover and still get into my dream college? Okay. So, a lot of students have had difficulty with COVID and remote learning. So, colleges do understand that. Now, your dream college, I have no idea what that is. I don't know what your transcripts look like. I don't know what your resume looks like. What I do want you to know, so if we work together, I'll be able to help you with that. But what I do want you to know is it's not all or nothing. There are many, many paths to success. Do not put yourself in the position of feeling, kind of like, if this doesn't work, then that's it. Because it's not like that. It's just not like that. Let me give you an example. There was a survey done recently by graduate schools and employers, and they asked Do you prefer a student, when you're the student who's applying for a job or for, an MBA or for, medical school or whatever, do you prefer them to be in the bottom 50th percent of an Ivy League or the top 10% of the school that they're applying from? And they said top 10% or top 20% of the school they're applying from. So what I'm trying to tell you is your life is a long journey, right? College is just one step in designing the kind of life that will bring you meaning, that will bring you financial stability. Don't get tunnel vision about this. So I don't think there's anything wrong with having a dream school. That's fine. But do your research, be well informed. There are many great schools out there. And, you have something of value. You have talent. You have something of value to offer the world. That I can guarantee, even though I don't know you. Is SAT and ACT still important? It is if you do well. So if you do well and you're at the top 50th percentile, yes. Now, there are some colleges that are now requiring it again. Some schools in Florida, a few schools, right? But, the trend is toward test optional. However, I still have my students prepare. I give an ACT versus SAT diagnostic, and I am absolutely sure to help them maximize. Because if you can do well, yeah, it's going to help. Absolutely. How much weight does AP scores? By the way, Leslie, I don't know if we can continue for a couple of minutes or if we have to stop. So let me just open up the chat. Please bring it. Yeah, so Leslie, if you could just tell me if we can continue a little bit. Okay, we can continue for a couple of minutes. All right. Yeah, and I see there are a lot of questions, and I'm not going to be able to get to all of them. So, feel free. I'm sharing my contact info. If, you still haven't gotten it resolved, you can reach out to me, and I hope I see you at the strategy session so we can talk about, which of the packages would be best for you and how I can help you on this journey. So AP, yeah, well, especially in the absence of when it's test optional, AP then becomes more important. So if you're not submitting your scores, I would say that's important. And if you do really well, it's important. But, again, there's no kind of formula, right? Because each person is different. So how I would help you, Anonymous, who's asking the question about AP, optimize your application, whether, if you have high AP scores or not, then it would depend on the whole picture. How can you be academically prepared for college? That's a really good question. Yeah. So really, AP supposedly prepares students for college. It really all depends on what high school you're in and what college you're going to. One way to do that is to be sure is to take an online class, a college class, see what the level is. You don't have to take it for a grade. You might be able to take it, in the summer, especially at the beginning of high school. It's a good question. Ask your high school counselor what they're doing to prepare you. That's a good question. You should ask questions like that. Okay, one last question. Okay, I don't know where to start. Going into my junior year. Okay. I'm going into my junior year, and I know it's time to be getting ready for college, but I don't know where to start. Where should I begin? Okay. So, I would say the most important beginning is to start to get to know yourself a little bit. I give students an interest and strengths assessment. Ask your high school counselor. If you're not, if you're going to be working with me, I will give it to you. If you're not, then perhaps your high school counselor has one, interest and strengths. And then if not, you can kind of search one out on your own and look at the results and start to kind of, I would say, start to think, what kind of life do I want to have? What are the careers out there that sound really interesting? Now, you don't have to figure it all out, right? As I said, you can even apply undecided. So don't feel pressured, What I do recommend, though, is that you start with you. You start with, what am I interested in? And then, then there's a step-by-step process. And I hope that your high school guidance counselor, gives you a step-by-step. I know that a lot of counselors are overwhelmed. They're wearing many hats. So, if you're stuck, you can get in touch with me. I will send you a timeline so you can kind of make sure that all the things are being checked off. Okay, so I think we have to stop because Leslie said that we really only had a few more minutes. So I hope I see you in the strategy session with your parents, and I look forward to connecting soon. Take really good care.